Left 4 Dead 2 is a cooperative shooter released in 2009 where you take on the role of four survivors out of the two different groups of them who are immune, or carriers, to the effects of the zombie virus known as the green flu. But they are in just as much danger as someone who isn't immune. As you make your way through various areas of the United States of America, going from safe zone to safe zone, you'll encounter and tear your way through swarms of infected, both the common and special variety. In this video, I will be discussing the backstories of the original four survivors and the campaign itself in which they debut, No Mercy. I'll also be discussing a bit about the special infected, their abilities, and what I personally think about the topics themselves. The first level, No Mercy, starts you and three other survivors off on top of a building with a helicopter flying by, warning you of a safe zone not far from your location at Mercy Hospital. This first campaign, with its grim and rainy urban atmosphere, really sets the tone for what to expect as you make your way through each campaign involving the original four survivors. So, let's start with the characters. There's Bill, who is a grizzled Vietnam War veteran who barely escapes from a veterans hospital that he was going to have a surgery at. He struggles while drugged to get back home and gear up during the initial outbreak, but he does eventually make it back home, grabs his gear and his trusty M16 assault rifle, and makes his way to a safe zone. At some point during the story, he and the other survivors meet up and band together to try and survive this nightmare. Probably not long before the intro cutscene to Left 4 Dead 1. There's Francis, who was part of a biker gang, and he would have spent his last night of freedom from trying to impersonate a cop partying before being thrown into prison. But the outbreak gets to him and his gang first. So, what do? Francis has them drag a jukebox up to the roof of the bar, blast music, and just shoot zombies. At some point, he gets separated from the gang and meets the other survivors. Lewis was an IT worker before the outbreak, still choosing to go to work despite the rumors of the infected in the city. During a restroom break, he was assaulted by a recently turned coworker and was bitten before killing it with a metal toilet paper dispenser before making his way out into the ruins of the city. There's Zoe, who was at first just your average horror movie buff of a college student, but she was thrust into this nightmare. Her and her family were attacked one night during the first 2 weeks of the outbreak while having dinner together. Zoe's mother, of course, gets bit and turns pretty much instantly and attacks who at the time they don't know, but he is immune due to the gene that makes you immune being passed down from the father's side. But them not knowing this, she shoots her father and ends up leaving, meeting up with the other three at some point as well. The four together, they start out tragic strangers just trying to survive in a world facing overwhelming odds where one mistake, one misstep could be the end of all their journeys. By the end of it, and the sacrifice, they've become like family though. Close knit zombie killing machines forced into situation and after situation requiring them to make some of the toughest decisions they've ever faced, including Bill forcing them to leave behind military personnel at a base they barely escaped from, where they then head south in hopes of finding a boat to get to the 40 Keys. But that's something I'll cover more in my video on the sacrifice and their escape from the base. Alright, now that I've talked a bit about the original four survivors, let's talk about the special infected and a little bit about the game mechanics. In the first game, Left 4 Dead, there's an intro cutscene that plays upon launching the first game in the series, meant to give you an intro or a tutorial into the mechanics of the game and the horrors that you will face throughout the campaigns. Bill has everyone stop and leans down to investigate the bottom half of what would become known as the Boomer, and makes a comment about how the infected are changing before wiping the bile from the body onto Francis's vest and drawing in a small horde of common infected, displaying the mechanic of what Boomer bile does. The cutscene goes on to show you the mechanics of the different special infected, the witch, the smoker, and the hunter, and incapacitation mechanics, as well as carl arm mechanics, before introducing us into the great hulking beast that is the tank. They eventually make their way down a different alley and up a fire escape after fighting through swarms of common infected and being chased by a tank, barely getting up to the roof as the fire escape collapses under the weight of the tank chasing after them. The tank then falls with the fire escape and dies, leaving them safe and able to rest briefly for the moment. But since we are doing the Left 4 Dead 2 version of the game, there are even more specials that were added, namely the Charger, the Jockey, the Spitter, and the female variant of the Boomer. There are many theories about how the virus dictates what variant you will become upon being infected and turning, but maybe that's something that I'll talk about in another. So, the Boomer. He's a large, bloated infected that will constantly regenerate bile to spew onto survivors. When this bile comes into contact with other survivors, it immediately draws all the zombies and a larger horde into the area to attack whoever is affected by the bile. The boomer is the weakest of the infected and will rupture and explode upon being shot, covering anyone too close to it in said bile, achieving the same effect as just being vomited on normally by it. But despite their size and the constant groaning and burping sounds that they make, they can get in close enough to cover you in puke or burst on you if shot instead of being punched away and then cleared when enough distance is given. The Hunter. The Hunter is a special infected capable of leaping 20 feet straight up into the air, or leaping off buildings onto unexpecting survivors below, or even landing if they miss and immediately jumping away, being completely fine after landing from that height. They're equipped with razor sharp nails to tear away at any unlucky survivor that they land on. He's not too tough, but he's not too strong either, and relies a lot on stealth and leaping from distances to get in close to survivors. They can be pretty strong in versus mode if you coordinate properly, or if you use them, like, say, during a panic event for scratching on weaker survivors who are surrounded by a bunch of zombies, or affected by puke. The smoker is a variant that constantly regenerates a tongue that can be easily cut or broken by other survivors, and is also, like the hunter, not too weak but not too strong. It relies on surprise attacks and can ensnare its prey from a distance or from rooftops to drag them away to their doom, where it will then choke them and beat the survivor to death once they have them. Upon death, it explodes into a gas cloud that infects those who aren't immune and obscures the vision of those who are immune, also causing them to cough and sputter from the inhalation of this gas. The witch. She is a variant of the special infected who prefers to sit in dark areas or sometimes directly in your path and cries, attracting survivors to come and check on her, which is usually the last thing they'll do. Despite this, the witch is disheveled, thin look. She is extremely tough and very fast, equipped with several inch-long claws that can knock you down in one hit on lower difficulties or even kill you instantly on expert difficulty. While she can be killed by sneaking up on her and shooting her in the head with a shotgun, she's usually not worth messing with a lot of the time, and you can go around her. Usually. Upon killing a survivor, she'll run away screaming, having only taken out the one who initially disturbed her or shot her. Although, she can switch targets if you get in her way for too long, or hit her with fire. Whether or not she's killed someone already, she'll come after whoever lit her on fire. The Spitter. The Spitter is the second weakest of the special infected health-wise. She constantly produces and leaks a highly corrosive acid which has damaged her body grotesquely. She can launch this acid quite accurately, though, over large distances, usually into groups of survivors who are too close together or being swarmed or pinned by another special infected. In versus mode, she can actually launch this ball of acid while on a ladder and peeking over a ledge, or she can use it like a mortar to launch into the middle of a survivor being swarmed by common infected. Upon death, she'll release a pool of acid under her body that survivors must wait out or choose to go around. They are known to block pathways as well as by either spitting or dying in a place where the survivors would have to go through to make progress. The Jockey. The Jockey is a small special infected that is constantly giggling and cackling to it. He has decent mobility and will come after survivors or attempt to wait and surprise, then attempting to jump on their heads and steer them into danger, whether that be spitter goo, a horde of zombies, or off a ledge where the survivors will hang for dear life. The Charger is a big, tough special infected with one big arm and a small little arm that is no longer of any use. And he has a flattened face with minimal cartilage facial features like the nose, lips, and ears. This is probably from repeatedly bashing itself into survivors and other surfaces. Despite its size, it is capable of moving at great speeds to grab and pummel survivors on the nearest surface it collides with. It can also use this ability to instantly kill survivors by charging them off of high ledges or buildings to their doom below. In versus mode, he's another good special to use, much like the Hunter, if you just need like a few scratches on a weakened survivor. And then finally, there's the Tank. The Tank is a giant 12-foot tall monster of an infected capable of great feats of strength and endurance. He can knock around cars and throw boulders and concrete like great distances. His skin is hardened due to the increased muscle growth brought on by the green flu, and this makes him tougher than any other special to take down. Working together and concentrating fire on him is the only way you will survive an encounter with the Tank. In versus mode, I think he's best used when you coordinate with your team before going in for the kill or kills. He's also great for stalling for time while waiting on respawn timers. The special infected aren't too hard to deal with on their own, but they're a lot more intelligent than they may seem at first and are known to coordinate ambushes and synchronize their attacks when they're together, making them formidable opponents in your fight for survival. Alright, so the original campaign in chronological order of the infections timeline. No Mercy. After the 4 original survivors' harrowing encounter with the special infected, they try to figure out what's next for them, as a news helicopter flies by the building informing them of a military safe zone at Mercy Hospital not far from their location, which you can see the sign of in the distance. Having a goal and nothing else to lose, they decide on a plan to head down the street, through the subway and sewer, and back up to Mercy Hospital, which ends up being easier said than done. After traveling through the zombie infested subways, warehouses, and labyrinthian designed sewers, and what's left of Mercy Hospital, they eventually reach the rooftop and signal the chopper pilot via radio, holding off wave after wave of common zombie hordes and special infected variants, including tanks. They survive their ordeal somehow, and board the news helicopter, only getting a few moments of rest before the helicopter pilot turns into a zombie himself, which leads us into the next campaign, Crash Course, which I will talk about in the next video I do on the Left 4 Dead series. Alright, so my thoughts on the topic. No Mercy is an excellent first campaign to start on, especially if you want to go in chronological order of events. The atmosphere of the dark, rainy night, the gore-stained walls of the apartments, and the sound of the infected around you really sets up the fast-paced action horror aspect Valve was going for when they designed the first game in the series. And that's just the first map. Each chapter of the campaign has so much environmental storytelling that you can put together from reading graffiti in the safe rooms and learning about the other survivors that have come through or perished, or scenes outside of each safe room where you'll come across dead survivors who had to make their last stands or may have gotten left behind. It's just so cool, all the small stories and possible bits of lore you can find just going through the game and looking around when you don't have five specials and a horde breathing down your neck. Something else that I love about the game in general is the sound design. The way Valve developed the sounds for each special infected to have their own unique spawn sound and instrument, and the quality of the directional sound in the game and the music throughout each campaign, and even in the main menu, is outstanding. Each of the specials, like I said, has their own musical indicator when they spawn, letting you know immediately once you've learned what sound equals which special, what you're about to face up ahead. But if you're like me and play with the music volume very low, then you probably rely more on the directional sound and the noises each special themselves makes while active, or in the hunter's case, he'll start to growl when he gets close to you. To maximize the effect of the directional sound mechanics, I recommend playing with headphones that have 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound, as you'll be able to basically pinpoint the direction where the specials are hiding and come up with a plan on how to deal with them. As the AI specials don't always come in immediately. Like, a boomer may hang back a bit and wait for you to get close before coming around the corner and getting you, or being popped by somebody who's a little less experienced or a little bit more twitchy on the trigger finger. But each of the special infected are just so unique and bring an excellent balance of tension versus relaxed moments in standard gameplay. Like, each one has their own role for what they bring to the game and can easily wipe you and your team if you aren't careful. Overall, I think this is a great game to pick up and play, whether you play it alone or in public matches, or if you're just looking for something to do with your friends. Left 4 Dead 2 has infinite replayability, especially thanks to mods and custom map content, and a bunch of other different modes of gameplay to choose from as well. I can't recommend this game enough. Thank you everyone for watching my video, and let me know what you think about it down in the comments below.